Titans, go!
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, aka the Doom Patrol podcast. I'm your host, Charles Skaggs, and with me in Doom Manor, once again, my co-host, everybody's favorite co-host, Jesse Jackson.
Hello, Charles. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Have a pretty good weekend. Not bad.
Well, good.
How about you?
Everything's going pretty well. Pretty quiet weekend. Linda was off at a retreat, so
Yeah.
I got to be a bachelor, and so
did you catch up on your TV viewing?
yes, I did. That's exactly what I did.
I figured that DVR must have got a workout.
Yes, it did. It's very nice, and though I'm really, as I've shared off screen, I have an older TV, so it is not a smart TV.
Yeah.
And it only has 2 HDMI plugs. So
Okay.
I can't Google Cast on it.
Yeah.
And so to watch the DC universe, I have to be at my computer.
Okay.
But there is so many of the DCU animated movies, because I no longer do Netflix, discs.
Right.
And I don't buy them. And so I was like, if I could sit in my recliner and just go through these, this would make a great, weekend of binging to catch up on all of these animated.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So kind of give you a little tech heads up. They do have HDMI splitters.
Yes. Okay. So I have to pick up one of those.
So you can basically plug it in, and then it'll have more than one port.
Okay, good. I'll have to take you.
So yeah, go kind of check in your kind of audio visual tech geek area in the store, and maybe you can find one. That's a little AV advice from yours truly.
Titan Talk, Tech Talk.
Tech Talk, exactly.
Yes.
All right, so yes, we're going to talk some more Doom Patrol, everybody, because hey, Doom Patrol's been awesome. And if you haven't been watching, shame on you, because it's been so good. And today, here at episode 27, we're going to talk Therapy Patrol, or as Cliff Steele refers to it, Therapy Patrol.
So I have not gone online to check out anyone's thoughts on this one, but if they were unhappy with last week's episode, I can only imagine what they feel this week's episode.
Well, this was big on character development.
This was huge on character development.
So forget what they think. I enjoyed it.
I loved it.
I got so much backstory with these guys and so much insight into our characters this week.
Yeah, this is just wonderful. This was such a great episode in every way.
Right.
And we got so much of where everyone's at, and I loved seeing Cliff taking kind of, certainly not a leadership role, but a very active, we got to get our stuff working, and also
he realizes that everybody needs to be to get all these problems out. And even Rita kind of goes along with it later in the episode, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and the surprise villain at the end was
nobody.
genius.
If you saw that coming, you're totally lying. Nobody saw that coming.
No one saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. But it obviously connects to Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, and I But okay, I'll wait till you talk about Cliff. I'm sure Cliff is one of our
Oh
topics.
yeah, oh yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. I'm gonna do a little different structure this week
Okay.
because of how this episode was structured. Um, Before we get into that though, let's get into kind of an overview of the episode. So this is episode 7 of Doom Patrol season 1 that aired just a couple days ago on March 29th, 2019. Written by Neil Reynolds, who co-wrote the second episode of the season, Donkey Patrol, and it was directed by Rob Hardy. This episode. And as far as guest cast, we got a quick vocal cameo from Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody. We got to see Phil Morris as Silas Stone. We got the return of Charmin Lee as Vic's mom, Elinore Stone, who gets a little
Yes.
bit more of a scene with Vic in the hospital as when he was a kid. We got the introduction of Bethany Ann Lind as Clara Steele, the adult Clara Steele, although it's not really her as we find out. It's more of like a hallucination on Cliff's part.
Yes. Yeah.
She's
The
been in couple episodes of she's been in Stranger Things and The Walking Dead. I just thought I'd mention that real quick.
No, I'm glad. I wonder if we ever see her in real life, will they use the same actress? You would hope so.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Because Vic's seen her online, so he knows what she looks like. So I have to think that that they're going to keep that same actress.
Yeah, that makes sense for you.
We got the return of Alan Heckner as Bump Weathers, although as we find out again, it's not really Bump Weathers.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen him since the pilot episode, and he's been in an episode of The Walking Dead. Little side note. We got to see younger versions of Rita, Larry, and Vic in this episode, and Cliff,
Yes.
I should say. So we got to, so we got Lana Turner as young Rita. We got Braxton Alexander as young Larry. Let's see who else. Braylon Rankins as young Vic, and Gibson Todd as young Cliff. So we got the little mini Doom Patrol in this episode. And then we got the introduction of Larry's parents, who are Joanne Willette as Debbie Traynor and A. Smith Harrison as Gerald Traynor.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got the introduction of Cliff's dad and mom, who aren't named,
No.
but they're played by Matthew Blum and Caitlin Baden, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting cast. Not really a lot of notable actors, but and we also got the return of Kyle Clements as John Bowers, who is again more of a memory hallucination.
Yeah.
In Larry's part. So other than that, I forgot. We also got the introduction of Dave McDonald as Jane's daddy.
And we will have to talk about that scene.
Oh, we will. So we're going to see more of Jane's daddy, I'm sure. And he's been in a few episodes. He's been in episodes of Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in The Gifted and the 2017 revival of MacGyver.
Ah, okay.
So just thought I'd bring that up. So for all you trivia buffs. And not going to have any theme this week because of the way this episode was structured. Okay. We're going to kind of break this down into more smaller segments, but we're going to have a couple more of them.
All right, sounds good.
So I think the first topic I want to talk about is Rita.
Okay.
This week. I'll kind of give everybody their spotlight segment this week. This is how we're going to do that. So we're going to talk Rita because she's the first flashback in the episode. And we kind of get a flashback to her in 1930s Hollywood as we see young Rita, who, as we find out, Rita Farr is her stage name, not her real name.
And she did not. I was thinking she was going to actually tell the team during the therapy her real name. I actually thought that was going to happen, but it didn't.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that's going to – because as far as I know, Rita Farr doesn't have a real name in the comics.
Right.
So
yeah, that is – I mean –
So this is something new for the show, so I'm wondering if there's a deliberate reason where we don't know Rita's real name.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe we'll find that out later.
And the reason I'm thinking, right, is because you see how young she was.
Right.
And talk about stage parents.
Yes.
You know,
And these were stage parents this is pretty early because this was, 1930s Hollywood
yeah, and
in this
it's
setting. So
yeah,
stage parents wasn't really a thing but apparently Rita's parents were some of the first, I guess.
and it was. I always think it's interesting, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but with
Right.
child actors, how much of it is the child and how much it is the parent. For
Right.
example, I've talked to Rob Southgate,
Yes.
our glorious podcast
Our our
leader.
our
You know,
executive producer. Yes.
yeah, Molly, his daughter, is very active in acting,
Right.
and it's very clear she's driving this, and her mom and dad are very proud of her and are helping her.
Right.
You get the feeling that Rita was in wanting this, but it also they were almost a little too, we won't have her go into school
Right.
because,
Well, so they're already taking it to like ridiculous extremes. They're not having her
yes,
go to school because so that she won't get distracted by other children, as we find out.
yes,
So, which means they're not going to keep her educated,
right.
and so therefore she's just going full force and into the acting thing.
And I
And it's kind
yeah,
of, I think it's partially why Rita is the way she is that um, she's her life is essentially, she realizes, a facade.
yes,
It's a complete illusion,
and
and she starts to kind of get an understanding of she realizes this. She starts to become more aware of how her life is a facade, but then she also is concerned about how, if she doesn't have Rita Farr in her life, what is she apart from Rita Farr?
yeah, and this was way before homeschooling was a thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it, I had a couple of mixed emotions about this sequence,
Yes.
Charles. It and it's always interesting, and I can't. I'm not going to get the phrase right, but
Yeah.
seeing a splinter in your neighbor's eye while you've got a log in your own.
Okay.
I was kind of, Rita, just you've had this breakdown. You don't want to be yourself. You're already trying to be a better person. You should be able to get your stuff together. You should be
Well,
okay. And then I look at me,
yeah.
who struggled with weight my whole life. Like,
Yeah.
someone could say, Jesse, just, exercise more, eat less,
Right.
just do it. And so,
It's easy to talk about, but to
right.
actually do it is much harder.
And when you think about all the baggage she's had,
Right.
um, and I also don't know, for as much as um, they talk about the chief helping them, to a certain degree, he's kind of give them a safe place for them to run in place. They don't.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if
They
he's
don't they
actually
don't they,
worked
they don't
on.
address things head on. It's more of
Right.
like yeah, you're calling it a safe space is probably a very good analogy,
Yeah.
because the the chief realizes that these people couldn't function in normal society.
Right.
So he's collected them, but
Yeah.
he's not addressing and trying to I mean, he tries to counsel, like,
Right.
people like Jane and whatnot, but it's not enough for what they
No.
need. It's not enough. So now, without the chief, they're actually forced to interact with each other,
Hmm.
and this is where all the truths and all the secrets and the lies are coming out,
Absolutely.
and they're
Yes.
actually having to confront things head on here.
Yes.
So there's a great, after this kind of flashback where we've with Rita meeting this movie star named Ethel Singer, we kind of jump to the present, and Rita is having, like you said, trouble getting herself together, literally.
Yes.
She crawls out of bed, trying to get herself together. She ends up losing cohesion and slumps down a furnace grate. And
Yeah,
she ends up in the furnace. And
and
she has to
by the
kind of like
way,
will herself out of that predicament because
yeah,
nobody else can hear her.
and hit her morning mantra,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
of
Yeah.
focus, I am Rita, I am Rita,
Yeah, the
you
whole
know,
like the person who is breathing is
yeah,
me, that whole thing.
yeah,
Yes.
the whole um
And she uses it to kind of like form herself. Like the person with an arm is me, the person
yeah,
with another arm is me.
yeah. I mean, it it was it was interesting to see, and this kind of, and you wonder, is that one of the things the chief has helped her to do, and is a coping mechanism, versus trying to go directly to the source of why she feels that way, so that she can be more comfortable with herself,
Right.
you know?
Well, and even though she has a breakthrough in this episode,
Yeah,
with realizing that that um, Rita Farr is a facade,
yeah,
there's still some things she hasn't addressed, and I think that's
exactly.
why she's still having trouble.
I think so too.
Like the whole thing with when she gets down in the furnace room, that
Hmm.
she sees a cradle after she crawls out,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm really sick and tired of having all these creepy baby images, in front of me. And then she
Yes.
kind of immediately starts to blame herself, like maybe I deserve this.
Hmm.
And so again, it's Rita's self-esteem that
Absolutely.
affects her control. And it's only when, like she gets back to the others, but she's in like the chief's wheelchair because her legs haven't formed yet. So she's like almost like a version of the chief wheeling in.
Yes.
And then when she starts to open up, then she actually gets her legs back.
And,
So again, this is just she's not confronting things, and when she starts confronting things, she has better self-esteem about herself.
and I love that they dress her in red a lot.
Well,
Um,
it's an homage to the Doom Patrol uniforms from the original.
exactly.
Yeah, we see a lot of the red and white theme,
Yeah. And
especially in Rita's wardrobe.
yeah, so I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and um, you wonder if I would like to see. I would like to see if I'm going to be early predictions,
okay,
but I would like to see by the end of this first season that she is more in control of herself,
right.
and that it would be very rare she would lose control. I think
Yes.
that would be an important character development I want to see in this first season.
Yeah, I think she's obviously learning more about herself, and I think I think as the season progresses, she's going to finally become to more terms with herself.
Hmm.
And when they have to actually confront Mr. Nobody, she'll be much more of an asset than a liability. We've
Yeah.
talked about that. So uh, last thing really I want to talk about with Rita is that she kind of backs up Cliff's claims that
Hmm.
everybody needs to open up to each other. She's like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, Cliff is right.
Yeah.
And like we do need to open up, otherwise Mr. Nobody's going to kick our ass, basically. And so she's kind of supportive of him with that, even though he's having a lot of problems that we'll talk about here shortly.
Yeah.
So, all right, anything else about Rita before we move on?
No, no, I thought that was really well done, and there it came. Seeing what happened led to one of my lines I'll give at the end of the season,
Okay,
at the
great.
end of the discussion.
Okay, great. Topic number 2, Larry. Let's talk about Larry, Negative Man. Um, we get a flashback with him to 1935 North Dakota,
Hmm.
where we see his parents arguing about Larry's sexuality. So apparently they're kind of in denial, although they realize that they're in denial over his sexuality, especially since, hey, it's the 1930s, and obviously homosexuality was very frowned upon back then. But apparently Larry got himself into some trouble by playing doctor with another boy at school, and this has obviously caused some trouble in the household.
Yes.
And Larry overhears this, young Larry, and I think we found out it's kind of part of why he has this self-loathing toward himself, which is what he addresses during the course of this episode. And actually, he has a bit of a breakthrough as well. And so I want to talk about Larry and what you think about him in this story.
Yeah, I was on board, vocal very at the very beginning that um, I didn't think they needed this twist of he being a homosexual.
Right.
I've since backed off and realized that was actually a very important part
Right.
of the story they're trying to tell. So this is continuing the um, the theme of him self-hating himself
Right.
for not taking control of his life. So, similar to what Rita is going through, he's going through similar things. And I do like that him and Negative Man, or whatever the energy being,
the negative spirit. Yeah.
are starting to try to talk to each other, to
Right.
try to have a true symbiotic relationship. So I thought that was really interesting, and I did think it was a great scene. Him, kind of in his almost like pilot hat.
Yes.
It's just it's one of the old time,
Yes.
hats with the earmuffs.
Right.
And him playing with his
And the
plane,
goggles.
and
Yeah.
he's got
As a kid. Yeah.
yeah, and then to overhear his parents, and without too much judgment, this is the 30.
Right.
There was not a lot of tolerance for alternate lifestyles, especially in rural America.
Right. Because this
So
is North Dakota, as rural as
yeah,
it gets.
yeah, exactly. So that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And that would scar.
Yeah.
I know that's got to scar him.
Well, and obviously it does. I mean, not
Yeah,
just because he has scars literally because of
yeah,
his accident later on,
yeah.
but obviously because of that fear.
Hmm.
And like his mom we find out was all upset because she's all afraid that, oh, if this comes out, we're going to lose our social standing in the school and church, and because God forbid what church people might
Yeah.
think of this. So Larry feels this intense pressure to keep this secret,
Yes.
and even though he has these feelings, he's just afraid to come out, and which is one of the reasons why like John, he's older and he gets involved with this relationship with John, he feels this, like even though John wants him to come out and be comfortable with who he is, Larry's still afraid of this because remember, he's still in the military, and
Yes.
that kind of thing is frowned upon, which is one of the things Larry brings up, that there was this pressure in the military against this kind of behavior.
Yes.
So the job he chose, the vocation he chose made his reasons for keeping that part of his life secret even stronger. And so, but John just wanted him to be comfortable with himself. So when the negative spirit creates this memory of this time when just before his accident, when he was with John, and they were kind of making out in the back of a pickup truck during a sunset and whatnot, that he had John, and the question is whether John is actually the negative spirit talking to Larry, depending on how you look at it, was waiting for Larry to kind of finally open up about it.
Yeah.
In which he does. He has a breakthrough himself where, he talks about how frustrating it is, and he talks about how insecure, and he calls himself a gaslighting, insecure hypocrite.
Yes.
Who ruined other people's lives instead of owning his own problems. And Um, so this is something that Larry has never really admitted to himself. And so,
Yes.
as a result, when they get back to, we're kind of back in the present, and Larry wakes up from this memory and talks to the other members of the Doom Patrol, um, he starts opening up. And now Cliff, you know, and again, we don't know because of how screwed up he is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He calls out Larry and says, well, okay, like he interrupts Larry and says, okay, well, you're gay, right?
Yeah.
And Larry's like, well, what I was going to say was this,
Yeah, that was great.
you know.
Um, I, I love how bad
So he's like
Cliff.
trying to out Larry before
Yeah,
Larry's ready to out himself here.
I I love how bad Cliff was at being the therapy leader, but the energy he had, and
Yes.
that
Brendan
um,
Fraser was just all over the place, and we'll talk
yeah,
about that here
yeah,
later. But
he was
uh,
great. I did.
he's
I
this
also,
catalyst for causing all this conflict in the
yeah,
group.
I did think it was very interesting of watching Larry wake up and go through all the bandages.
Right.
Um, I and I know in that they originally kind of talked about that he needed, the bandages stop the radiation from leaking,
Right.
but then why does he sleep without them? I mean, I guess you could say the bedroom's lead lined or
Yeah,
something,
it
but
is what it is, because you notice when Vic pounds on the door, there's that metallic sound.
yeah,
So it's like he's in like an isolation tank,
okay.
almost.
Um,
Kind of like when he was, when he was just recovering from his accident.
yeah.
That it's this kind of isolation, probably lead lined room, and
Hmm.
to keep the radiation from coming out and poisoning the others.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Good.
but allows him to actually take the bandages off.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Good.
so it allows him a bit of freedom. But yeah, so um, when he's with the others, Larry's, at first he's thinking the therapy thing is like a waste of time, but then he's like opening up about not being able to touch anybody for 60 years,
Yes.
which if you think about it, that's horrible.
That is.
And he finally opens up about his self-loathing
Right.
and how he hates himself. And, like John was the last person he touched and he loved him. So he actually admits that, yeah, I'm gay.
Hmm.
But he drove John away. But Larry says he's tired of the self-loathing. He's hurting himself and he's hurting the spirit inside of him.
Right.
And so again, another big breakthrough for Larry, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anything else about Larry before we move on?
Not at all.
Okay. Topic number 3, Vic, cyborg. Vic Stone, cyborg. So Vic's flashback, we go to 2002 Detroit, and we see that young Vic has a dislocated shoulder because he decided to go climbing trees, even though his father warned him not to.
Yes.
And he's all worried about what his father's going to say to him. But fortunately for Vic, his mother is far more understanding about it and is willing to keep the secret.
Yeah, I thought that was a great. I mean, the mom knew he learned his lesson,
Right.
and I would argue she probably told Silas later and said, "Don't say anything to him," so he'll know. Because that's what parents do.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really good moment, and it shows how much he loved his mother
Right.
and
Well, he
the
obviously got
guilt
along
he
better with
has.
her than he did
Yes.
his father.
Yeah.
So that when she dies, it's
Hmm.
like, well, I'm sure part of what Vic's inner thinking is that, well, why did mom have to die? Why couldn't it have been you?
Absolutely.
So, it's just like Vic's with the parent he likes the least.
Yes.
And so that's kind of had this affected their relationship, I think.
and it was very the scene of him with the similar to Tinder
Yeah,
act,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They with this fictional app they call Cash,
Yeah,
as in casual. Um,
was really interesting because all these people, you know, star groupies,
yes,
ooh, Cyborg, JLA, woohoo.
yes,
It's always the I love the idea that, in this world, you know, the they're embracing the fact that you would be, superheroes would be celebrities.
right.
So I thought that was interesting, and I thought how silly of Vic to, well, take away anyone who mentioned Cyborg because he's
He wants to be people be interested in him, not
right.
who the superhero that he
Yeah,
is.
it's kind of like um, the whole I want to be loved for me,
Right.
not for my money or not for my powers. And all of a sudden, oops, you find out, and heartbreaking that his internal processor or whatever,
Yeah.
his control,
His operating system.
yeah, is ends
Grid.
up being very smart and
Yeah.
kind of its own personality to, well, you want to meet them, and I don't know if you watch Orville,
Oh yeah,
uh,
I do watch the Orville.
but I thought of that with the scene where Isaac dates the doctor. And
Yes.
he's already done everything, the research, because that's what he would do. And she's kind of, the whole point of dating is to get to know each other. So I thought of that. And then when he sees his actual picture and she is, disturbed by it, it just crushes him. I,
Yes.
I just, he should have seen that coming, but I understand why he didn't. And it broke my heart, Charles.
Yeah. Well, the Grid, his operating system.
Yeah.
Uh, I kind of talked about this a few episodes back, where we kind of needed to keep an eye on Grid.
Yes.
And if you notice in this episode, Grid talks about, like, you know, Vic kind of confronts him as like, Grid, why are you, like, going into my subconscious, and trying
Hmm.
to, like, make your own decisions for me.
Yeah.
So, and he talks about that, well, ever since the reboot, apparently whatever bandwidth issues, like he talks about, like, he was being throttled before.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, there was some, like, safeguards about what Grid could do to Vic,
Hmm.
but those apparently are gone since the reboot.
Yes.
So Grid has more effect over Cyborg Vic than he realizes, and I still think it's like, well, you need to kind of keep an eye on Grid, because now that those safeguards are off, and Grid is kind of just diving into Vic's subconscious without telling him, what
Well,
else is he doing?
and what concerns me is that um, he's gone from one controlling person to another.
Right,
His father, and now then all of a sudden
right,
it's Grid.
yeah.
So
Now
yeah.
he goes through this whole thing with the whole reason we find out he stole the SAT key
Hmm.
last week was that he wanted to reprogram things so that he would be a closed system,
Right.
so that his father couldn't affect him.
Yes.
In which he does. He tells his father that. And they have an interesting discussion where, um, they talk about that. Vic calls him out. And he goes, "Why didn't you shut off all these notifications?"
Hmm.
And we find out that Silas put in some parental controls into
Right.
him. And Silas tells him, "Hey, like, there's like a few days where you couldn't even use your legs,
Hmm.
and you needed to focus. So you didn't need all that distraction, all those distractions.
Right.
And so again, like you said, it was controlling. So Silas was controlling him, and not leaving it up to Vic to decide what he wanted. And this obviously is some friction, and we find out when Vic kind of opens up to the rest of the Doom Patrol that he's never really trusted his father.
Yeah, exactly.
And this just, all this other stuff since he became cyborg is just proof of why he can't trust his father.
Yes.
But he realizes also that, okay, so I've never trusted my father, but at this point now it seems like my father doesn't trust me,
Right.
and that bothers him. So what did you
Hmm.
think about that moment?
Um, it's there's a lot going on there. We were, you know, I love the depth of Vic's father,
Right.
and you could make the argument that he everything he's doing is to try to protect Vic, and you
Yeah.
understand. I mean, one of the things that happens with a parent and a child is a child has to get its own independence. And especially in the teenage years, um, people will tell you that that's natural. This rebellion is them trying to get on their own. And so I think Vic is still going through that, even though he's a little bit older,
Right.
because of all and his father's, the whole, you know, him being a cyborg and all this. It's a very mixed up um, relationship. There's a
Yeah.
lot of tie-ins. I liked it. I thought it's very interesting. I I like that Vic is making this choice to move forward, but I'm not sure if it's going to work out for him um, in the long run.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Obviously, he's hasn't found it because we find out through the dating profile thing that
Yeah,
the one girl that's actually interested in talking to him, once he sends her a picture,
yeah,
current picture of who he is, she's repulsed by that.
yes,
So that just adds to his feelings of being a freak, an outsider,
yes,
and his loneliness,
yeah,
and that the kind of person he was probably a player back in the day because he played football.
yes.
So he probably had no problems, getting girls
Oh,
when he was younger, but then his accident happened and now that's been taken away from him.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
now he does it. Vic's interesting to hear because he also admits to the others that he killed his mom, or at least he feels responsible for
right.
killing his mom. And he and his dad don't talk about it. And he thought that becoming cyborg would be a way to kind of make everything right again.
Yes,
And but then Mr. Nobody comes along, and that's kind of a theme you notice throughout everybody's stories is that Mr. Nobody kind of preys on their insecurities.
yes,
And with Vic, he preys on his insecurity by saying or whispering in his ear, going like, "How do you know that your memories are real?"
yes.
So he has this self-doubt because of who he is, and it's like, well, I don't know, if I can trust my own memories,
Yeah,
which is kind of
absolutely.
important. So there's a lot more going on with Vic that probably still needs worked out,
Absolutely.
but at least he's opening up to the others. All right. Anything else about Vic before
Nope.
we move on? All right. Topic number 4, Crazy Jane. All right. This is kind of a big one, a little bit. We go have a flashback to 1950 Arkansas, where we see Jane as a baby crying in her crib, and she's being watched rather ominously and rather creepily by her father,
Um,
and whose voice we heard in the previous episode. When Jane was being swarmed by all those puzzle pieces and that hand
yes.
reached out, that was her daddy's voice. So
And
what do you think about that?
So I was very nervous, Charles, when he walked into her room with
Right.
a lit cigarette.
Hmm.
Um,
Now, granted, it was
because
1950, but
no, but you have heard stories about people being abused,
yes,
children being abused.
right.
So I was nervous the whole time. Um, they didn't go there, but they did go with the idea that she's she's needing comfort, she's needing help, and he just is blind to it. He
Right.
just could care less.
Right. He's checked
Um,
out.
yeah. A
He just like stares at her as
yeah,
she cries. Doesn't try to hold her.
yeah,
Doesn't try to console her, and very detached from her.
yeah, and
Very
so
disturbingly.
yeah, it very disturbing, very, very, very disturbing.
Yeah.
And you know that there is a this will come. I mean, you can tell this hurt her,
Yes.
on her, and we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I also,
It's. I think. Just. I want to put it this way.
yeah,
That whole thing with her daddy is something very important to her character, and
yeah,
you need to, like, every time that is addressed, you need to study it closely.
and I also, um, the way she, the way her and Vic fought,
Yes.
I thought was heartbreaking.
You mean
Yet,
Cliff?
yeah, Cliff. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. The way that Cliff and her fought is heartbreaking, but at the same time, it it's so real.
Yeah, they were
I
very
mean,
raw and brutal and harsh to each other.
yeah, and two, I mean, things that you go can't be unsaid.
Yes.
Um, and
And it's coming out in the middle of Vic having this breakdown,
yes, and
like physical breakdown.
yeah, and when and what's always sad about these kind of situations, Charles, is when if you and I are having a disagreement and we're both being really harsh against each other. What normally happens though is one of us will go past the line that's
Hmm.
there, and then all of a sudden the other stuff doesn't matter. It's just um, all the other mean stuff has gone away. It's like, oh, you went there, and
Yes.
it just and that's exactly what this happened when he mentioned the whole, um, you know,
Like they only
why,
like
yeah,
that he only like that Cliff mentions that he only likes one of Jane's 64 personalities.
yeah, yeah. That's the only one we only like one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's a very brutal moment.
it
And
is.
even the rest of the Doom Patrol is just like they're really pissed. They're just pissed off at
Yes.
Cliff. Like, how could you say that, you idiot? And then,
Hmm.
this is after Jane had kind of riled him up and saying that, well, she's very harsh to him too. She goes like, "You're never going to be a father because you're not a real man."
Yes, exactly.
So that's kind of one of the reasons that triggered why Cliff said what he said.
Hmm.
So at some point they're going to have to kind of patch this up
Yeah.
somehow. But right now it's not looking good at the moment.
No.
But Jane, as we're kind of brought into the present with her, we see her painting a picture of the chief, a painting of the chief,
Yes.
and she paints in white over it. She goes the word bastard, and then she takes the painting and she punches it repeatedly.
Over and over.
Now, I have a theory about why that whole thing is going on. What's your theory about why Jean is mad at the chief so much?
this last week's episode where she saw that she had her room
Right.
that had the locks.
Yes.
The whole
The notion that that basically
he
he
throws
was going
away his old toys.
right, the broken ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that really shook her because, we saw the episode before,
Right.
where he rescues her from the asylum
Yes.
and says, you can trust me, I'm there for you. And so I believe in her life, starting with her parents and all the way through all
Right.
the people who've disappointed her, all the people that have let her down, all the people who abused her. She has faith that the chief cares about her, supports her, and will always be there. And to see proof that he isn't that person would shake her to the core, and I think it
Right.
has.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a good part of it.
Yeah.
I think that my take on it is that Jane views the chief as kind of like a replacement father.
Yes, absolutely.
And she did feel that trust, and she felt betrayed of that trust. And it kind of goes back to her own daddy issues.
Yes.
And that she thought that the chief was somebody who could fill that void, but after learning more about him, feels that she can't trust him. And
yeah.
a lot of her, because she has so much rage and anger inside her, that's coming out. A lot of the personalities that feel this way are coming out. Hammerhead, as we're seeing a lot of.
Yes, we are.
And because she is so angry at the moment. And,
Yes.
it's like she's feeling let down by the chief. She's feeling let down by Cliff. And all of these feelings lead to not a breakthrough with Jane in this episode. It leads more to a breakdown.
Yeah.
And in a rather harsh way, she goes to that stash of videotapes, the old VHS videotapes of the chief interviewing her various personalities and counseling them. And she gets mad. She smashes some of the tapes, and and in a really heartbreaking moment, you can see the conflict within her because she's at war. Her personalities are struggling for control here.
Absolutely.
Because on the one hand, one personality is angry and smashing the tapes, while Jane, another part of her, is just horrified. She's like, no, stop it. And she's unable to control her own body because of the other personalities taking control and doing what another part of her doesn't want to be done. So there's this inner struggle going on. And again, Diana Guerrero just killing it.
Oh, she's just amazing.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
Really powerful stuff. Really amazing stuff. So Jane unfortunately doesn't have much of a breakthrough like Vic and Larry and Cliff, I think. Yeah. All right. Anything else about Jane before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Last topic. Cliff, Admiral Whiskers, and Mr. Nobody.
Yeah.
So, Cliff, as we kind of start off the episode, something seems a little off with Cliff. Vic comes around knocking on everybody's door to bring them to the meeting. Cliff just kind of sits there, doesn't say anything, which is very uncharacteristic for Cliff, and doesn't move. And throughout the course of the episode, as we see him interacting with others, he starts to go off the hinges and starts losing control bit by bit. And we're not quite sure what's caused all this. And we get a flashback with him to 1961 South Florida, where we see him younger in a trailer park, and he overhears his parents fighting, with his dad promising he'll be better, kind of like pretty much identical to when Cliff was promising to be better to his wife as an adult. If you notice, there's a little bit of a parallel there. And Um, he's getting all mad about the hole in his arm and Bump taking everything away from him. He gets all paranoid and angry. And we see this scene where he confronts Bump about, what he feels is, Bump taking his daughter away from him. And he lashes out and they have a fight. And so what did you think of that moment? Were you shocked by that?
I
Where he just busts down the door and, he's screaming in the bus all the way there. And
it looking back, I should have seen that this was obviously some kind of dream sequence.
right.
But they
Like
did
a hallucination.
it. Yeah, but I did not feel that at the time. I was just I was shocked at the way Bump the callousness.
Right.
Because at first he's like, she had no one else. I had to do this.
Yeah, we thought you were dead, dude. And
Yeah.
but then he's all like, well, she totally messed up my bachelor game, bro.
Yeah. And looking back, you're like, no, the guy showed in those pictures
Yeah.
would not have said things like that. And I was
Right.
really confused by it.
Right.
So
you're like, where is this coming from?
yeah, and so now then once you understand why, you go, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
As it turns out, yeah, it's this big hallucination, and it's essentially how Cliff is viewing Bump, not necessarily how the real Bump here.
And I also liked a lot the, sometimes the whole replaying the day through everyone's different viewpoint is a trope.
Yes.
Sometimes they do it too often. It worked in this one, at least from my perspective. I thought it worked really well.
Right.
And to hear them,
because they all connect to this big fight between Vic and Cliff outside.
Yeah, and to see that, because you would think that Vic and Cliff could fight. I mean, you see that very, very easy.
Right, because they had that antagonistic relationship.
Yeah, but when you see that what was thinking, it was really well done.
Yeah. And we find out that the reason Cliff is fighting with Vic is that he thinks Vic is Bump.
Yes.
That's what he sees in his head. And he sees all the other various Doom Patrol members as other people. Like he sees Jane as his daughter Clara and whatnot. Yeah. So he's really pissed off at Vic, thinking he's Bump, and they fight. And that kind of leads to the revelation of that the whole thing is a hallucination because Bump, and I'm using air quotes here, shoots Vic with a shotgun, but it has a blast like Cyborg sonic cannon.
Yeah, and we aren't sure how our evil villain, surprise villain, made the change. We assume he went in and was pushing on the brain or something, or chewing on wires. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So over the course of this episode, at the end is when we get the big payoff. The very out of nowhere, left field payoff.
Yes.
Where you find out that way back in the pilot episode, when Cliff was driving off in the bus, he ran over a rat. The mother of this character that's named Admiral Whiskers.
Yes.
And in this really heartbreaking moment, you see the rat the Admiral Whiskers watching his mother being killed and going, no, he's screaming, and you're like, what is this? What is this? And then all of a sudden, Mr. Nobody starts talking to Admiral Whiskers. And Admiral Whiskers is like, wait, what? What's all this? What's a narrator? What?
Yeah.
I'm just a woodland creature. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, and this, stay focused. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it has this really dark turn because Mr. Nobody essentially manipulates Admiral Whiskers, and it's funny just to say the name Admiral Whiskers,
Yes.
um, to seek his revenge on Cliff for killing his mom. And like he goes and sees Cliff in the window, and he goes like, "Yeah, there he is, the angel of death." And
Yeah.
he kind of has his own little Inigo Montoya moment from Princess Bride, where it's like, "My name is Admiral Whiskers. You killed my mother. Prepare to die," kind of thing.
I was hoping you caught that. That
Oh
was
yeah,
so perfect.
yes. So that what he does, that hole in Cliff's arm, because that was where Vic's finger ended up, that was
Hmm.
removed by Silas. So he's got this hole in his arm. So Admiral Whiskers crawls inside Cliff and starts messing around with his mechanics,
Yeah.
and probably crawled all the way up to where his brain connects to his metal body, and
Yes.
starts messing with the wires that are in there, which probably caused the hallucinations. And I'm guessing he probably did that at the direction of Mr. Nobody. Like Mr. Nobody knew how to mess with Cliff.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So essentially, Admiral Whiskers, under the direction of Mr. Nobody, knew how to control Vic, or control. I keep saying Vic, control Cliff,
Hmm.
and manipulate him. And so this, as we find out, is the reason he has a breakdown and why he's acting so weird throughout the entire episode. Like why he's like trying to eat toast, and even though he has no stomach or whatnot, and why he's just having all this emotional breakdown and not really. Um, he's just out of control. He's essentially losing it, as Rita points out.
Yeah.
And Rita's just like, "Hey, Cliff, get a grip already." But he just keeps losing it and losing it, and he starts having, like, you see him when Vic is talking. Cliff's legs are like shaking,
Yes.
rapidly, like something's obviously not right with Cliff, and he ends up having like a seizure once he really lashes out, and then all of a sudden Vic takes Cliff down, and then everybody's kind of stunned when this is after Jane had walked out,
Yes.
and Admiral Whiskers crawls out of Cliff's mouth
Hmm.
and just kind of looks at the others and then takes off out the open front door.
Yeah. I I love that reveal.
Yeah.
Um.
So basically, all this was Mr. Nobody's plans to get the Doom Patrol fighting with one another
Yes.
and sowing the seeds of discord and distrust and causing all these secrets and lies to come out and have all these horrible things said to one another.
Yeah.
So that they obviously won't be a threat.
Hmm.
So a very indirect way of messing with the Doom Patrol, as it turns out. So what did you think of that revelation?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it because it explained so much.
Right.
I love the idea that he's sitting there, um, not, saying things that he necessarily may not think of.
Right.
It's just wonderful. Um, I, I was very, very happy. I wanted to, um, it, this episode was already a great one. I
Yes.
loved the whole therapy, and how he kept, you know, Cliff kept, yeah, man, let's talk about it. Yeah, share. It
Right.
was just working over and over and over again. And then when we get this great reveal, you're like, oh, this is so awesome. It explains so much. I love this
Yeah.
in so many ways.
Yeah. It was just, and it brought the whole episode full circle.
Yeah.
As the ending of the episode is essentially the beginning of the story for this episode.
Yes.
And yeah, it was pretty well written, I thought.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
Um. No, I loved how everyone was talking. It just was wonderful.
Yep.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, it was great stuff. Do you have any favorite lines of the episode?
So I do. So I have to be careful with this one.
Okay.
But the episode starts with
Yeah.
a great monologue. So Cliff
By
going,
Cliff? Yes.
yes,
All
look,
right.
we all want to find the chief. To find the chief, we got to go through Mr. Nobody. And I think we can all agree if we don't get our blank together right here, right now, Mr. Nobody is going to frack us. He's going to frack us in our brains. He's going to frack us in our hearts. He's going to frack us in our souls. Now, I don't know what kind of freaky stuff your souls are into, and I'm not one to judge, but I want to keep my soul unfracked.
Yeah, that was a good line.
That was a great line.
Yeah, I was going to choose that one, but I was like, well, that might be too tempting for me, so I let that one go.
Now, and there's also what I found very funny.
Yeah.
Is when Rita shows up in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I didn't write it down. Cliff said,
I did.
Okay, because he didn't cuss.
Yeah.
Which it was so funny.
Well,
what was the line?
Well, this may not be the line you're referring to. So why don't you go ahead and say, do you remember kind of what the line was about?
Well, it was something like, what's wrong with your...
going on with your legs?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got that. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the line you're referring to, Cliff is talking to Rita, like you said. And Cliff goes, come on, we have no idea what's going on with each other. Look at Rita. Rita, what the heck is going on with your legs?
Yeah, stop you there. Exactly. He said heck.
Yes.
Not hell, not
right.
F.
Not F.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, go ahead.
But yeah, he did say heck. He's like, what the heck is going on with your legs? You can tell me. You can tell us. And Rita goes, I was stuck in a furnace and nobody could hear my screams. And Cliff goes, see, a powerful metaphor for what we're all feeling. And Rita goes, it was a literal furnace. So that was good.
And,
now, I kind of wondered if a lot of that was also Mr. Nobody talking through Cliff.
Could be. I love that. And then he says, even better, literal furnaces. We need to talk about this stuff.
See, it didn't sound a lot like Cliff. That's why I kind of wondered if Mr. Nobody was taking vocal control over Cliff and a lot of that stuff, which is probably maybe why he was so confrontational with everybody.
Yeah, I had that exchange as well.
Yeah.
The only other one I have, and I just thought this was so perfect, when Larry is pouring out his heart,
right,
and he goes, that was a joke. These bandages are the death of nuance, of all nuance.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, yes, yeah. I'm only sharing this because this is the thing that Mr. Nobody shoved in my face. Yeah. What's left of my face?
Yes, exactly.
And he's like, he doesn't get a reaction. And he's like, that was a joke.
Yes.
Like, these bandages are the death of all nuance. Yeah, that was good. I like this exchange between Cyborg and Grid, where Cyborg, Vic is out there like doing pull-ups in the yard, and he goes, Grid, have I ever said booyah? And Grid goes, you have said booyah 31 times since the accident, well above the threshold for a catchphrase.
That was a great line. Yes,
that's of course a nod to Cyborg's catchphrase in the Teen Titans animated series.
Yes.
So that's where a lot of the fans like. That's why every time everybody wants Cyborg, like in Justice League movie or whatnot, to say booyah. You don't have any other quotes you said?
No. Go
okay,
for
all right.
it.
So I got a couple more here. Exchange between Cliff and Larry, where he's trying to this is where they just started sitting down talking about their therapy, and Cliff goes, well, this is effing awkward. I just spilled my guts out. Someone else talk. And Larry goes, about what exactly? And Cliff goes, stuff, feelings. Let's get deep. Let's get to the root of our issues. Don't you want to know how your parents messed you up? I want to know how your parents messed you up. So I thought that was funny. And then Crazy Jane toward the end of the episode, just when she walks out the door, she goes, oh, wow. You all need more therapy than I do, and I'm the crazy one.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, that was good. All right. So what's your rating for this one?
I like this one a lot. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 episodes of uneaten toast.
Right. That's very good. That's very good. Um, I like this one a lot, but it doesn't really advance the story forward. But it was a lot of great character development. So I give this one 8.5. Screaming Admiral Whiskers.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
So that was good. I like that.
Good.
So I do have some Titan Tower news, but just really quickly. Um, we got some news. We got some return dates.
Yes, we
a couple
did.
Of, so
I
we got
saw that.
So we got the return. For those wondering about the return of the second half of Young Justice Outsiders, that will return to DC Universe for the final half of the season on July 2nd, 2019. And this is news that came out of WonderCon. And for those of you wondering when Titan Season 2 is supposed to arrive, that's going to be in fall 2019. We don't have a specific date yet, but it seems like we're going to get a little sooner than we thought. And if you notice, if you were noticing about the other shows like Swamp Thing and Stargirl, which was supposed to come out this summer, was pushed back all the way to early 2020 for some reason. And I'm thinking it was to make room for Titan Season 2 to get that out faster. As kind of like an opening on their schedule, I guess. So they kind of shuffled the schedule around, I think, with that.
I think that might be the case, so that's great.
Yep. So if you're looking forward to Titan Season 2, that's when, and obviously we'll be talking about that here on Titan Talk, no questions about that. So we just have to wait until this roughly, September, October, maybe?
Yeah.
So stay tuned, guys. It's only just 6 months away? So
absolutely, yeah.
So we can do that. And we obviously we'll have Phil Parrish back on to hopefully talk Young Justice Outsiders, the second half of that.
Absolutely. I see. That's another thing.
Yep.
That as we talk Tech Talk, I need to watch those. I saw a couple of them. They look really good.
So you should catch up on that, and then you can join Phil and me for our discussion on Young Justice Outsiders. That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. So do have one Tell It to Titan Talk this time.
Yay.
As we got some feedback from Holly from Wisconsin.
Of course.
So always great to hear from Holly. She goes, "Hey, Charles and Jesse. Another great episode." And this is referring to Therapy Patrol. The whole team talking about past issues thanks to Cliff. All of them having visions about their pasts. The twist with Mr. Nobody egging Agent Whiskers, I think she means Admiral Whiskers, on to avenge his mother's untimely death by going after Cliff may hopefully work in the team's favor.
Yes.
Interesting. I just wonder how long Cliff is going to be out of commission. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Yay, very nice.
Always great to hear from you, Holly. We love it. Love the fact that you're watching Doom Patrol right along with us. And,
absolutely.
Hopefully that doesn't change. Yeah. So if you want to be like Holly and you want to write in, we'd love to hear from you what you think about Doom Patrol. You can drop us a line at titantalkcast@gmail.com. That's titantalkcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you there. Just drop us a line, and we'll read it here on the air. Or if you don't want us to, just let us know, and we won't. But if you just want to let us know what you're thinking. Otherwise, you can reach us on our Facebook account at Titan Talk, the Titans Podcast. Please like that because that helps Facebook, their algorithms, make us more aware to people about what's going on. And also, please follow us on Twitter at Titan Talkcast.
Yes, and
where we give you all kinds of news as it happens about Titans, Doom Patrol, any kind of DC Universe stuff. So please check that out.
And if you get a chance, as he's saying, going to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from and sharing, a review or rating it truly does help people find us. So that, and also it makes us happy to read the reviews.
Exactly. Hopefully everybody out there is enjoying Titan Talk, enjoying our Doom Patrol recaps. And if there's something you want us to be doing, or we don't think we're doing it quite right, let us know. We're always up for hearing feedback, and and trying to improve the show however we can. So please let
Yeah.
us know. All right.
Yeah, we've gotten 12 ratings and 6 reviews. The last review was
Very
from
cool.
December 2018, so we need to get a 2019 review
Yeah,
put in
let's get
there.
that. Let's get that on the board. It's like here we are. We're at the end of March.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could drop us a review if you haven't done so already,
Hmm.
and let us know what you think about the show. That'd
Yeah.
be great. All right.
So I can be reached at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter.
Yep.
I am on Facebook, Jesse Jackson, Louisville, Texas. You can hear Charles and I talk about Doctor Who on right now on a monthly basis, but don't worry. Charles is taking the slack up of the other 3 weeks a month,
Yep.
usually, with some special
Guest
hosts that have been amazing.
Yep.
So many great listeners have stepped up and said, "Yeah, I'd love to talk Doctor Who." So that's just wonderful. And and you can hear me on Set Lusting Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast. We are in the middle of doing a 40 Days of Springsteen, where we take a Springsteen lyric and talk about what it means to us. And I have been blessed, Charles, with so many listeners have sent in their own little discussion. In fact, it's gone so well. I think after this 40 Days of Springsteen, I'm going to keep this going with a musical thought for the day, and once a musical thought, and do that once a week going forward to kind of an extra episode.
Well, I'm glad you're getting so much good feedback on that.
Yes, it is. It's very, very nice. And
I might have to send in one of my own.
Yes, and in fact, I urge people, it doesn't have to be a Springsteen lyric. If it's, Sting or the Cranberries or the Ramones, Johnny Cash, doesn't matter. Send it up and we can do it. And then my last plug, you should be seeing in the feed soon, for tuning into Sci-Fi TV's feed, Small Council Matters, the Game of Thrones roundtable, where friend of the Doctor Who, Christine, joins us. We just did our pre-game show. That should be coming out soon, and we'll be covering Game of Thrones final season on a weekly basis.
Yep, and we'll be talking with Christine here once again on Next Stop Everywhere here shortly.
Yes,
as we discuss A Good Man Goes to War.
Oh, I just so wish it was doing that this weekend with Linda out of town. I just don't know if I can convince Linda that on next weekend when you're doing to let me visit. So I'm going to try my best.
The offer's still there if you ever want.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's open invitation as always.
Thanks.
All right. So as for me, you can reach me on the Twitter machine at Charles Skaggs, on Instagram at Charles Skaggs, or on Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, or in my blog at Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including Titans, Doom Patrol, any kind of casting news for the other DC Universe shows, or any kind of comic book sci-fi news. Probably going to be reviewing the new Shazam movie here as it comes out this coming weekend, so stay tuned for that. And please check that out. I definitely appreciate it. News of my other podcasts, of course, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with Jesse, and a bunch of assorted special guest companions. And then also Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic artist Chris Sprouse, where I talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, etc., etc. And please check that out as well. I would definitely appreciate that. Other than that, next time on Titan Talk, we're going to talk Danny Patrol, the 8th episode of Doom Patrol Season 1, as we get the first episode, presumably, of Danny the Street. And the episode description for that is a sentient, genderqueer, teleporting street named Danny, who's being hunted by the secret Bureau of Normalcy, needs help from Niles, but gets Vic and Larry instead. So wackiness ensues, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So come on back next week. We're going to talk Danny Patrol right here on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And Jesse, thank you so much for being my wonderful co-host.
Well, Charles, I am so glad. This was, I'm going to say this again, and I will probably end up saying it every episode. This was such a wonderful surprise to me. I just had not thought that, I just had a mild interest in doing this. And this has been such a surprise. I just did not expect this series to be this good. And I'm just so glad that I get a chance to talk about it to you every week.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I honestly thought that I would have to round up another co-host somewhere to help me review Doom Patrol, but I'm so glad you checked it out, and I'm really glad that you're enjoying it.
And I know we're going long, but
yes.
Has it met your expectations or exceeded it?
I think given what we saw from Titans, I think it exceeded it. I didn't expect. Yeah. I thought it would be kind of along the level of Titans after watching Titans, but Doom Patrol, I think, is just really elevated the game from Titans, and so I'm very satisfied with it. Is it exactly like the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol comics? No, but that's okay. I'm okay with it because it kind of incorporates all the various Doom Patrol eras while bringing something new to the table as well. So I'm okay with that. The characters are consistent, and they're very faithful to their comics versions, even if the storylines aren't like word for word verbatim. And I'm really enjoying the hell out of Doom Patrol.
Well, and I promise I won't keep you too much longer. But
yeah, that's all right.
What was interesting to me is
okay.
I just talked about. Yeah, I you can tell Linda's not home, right?
Yes, I can.
So, tuning into Sci-Fi TV just recently they do 200 minutes where they kind of ask questions. They talked about would you rather original material or material based on existing, like an adaptation. And,
yep.
My answer was I love original material, but when you see someone take something you love and do a good job with it, there's something special about that. And
right.
And I get the feeling from you that since you love the Doom Patrol, you're just really happy to see them do a great job of adapting it. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy. It's good
right.
They're making it its own.
Yeah, would I have loved to have seen a straight very extremely faithful version of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol? You bet.
Yeah.
But I'm perfectly happy with this as well.
Yeah.
It's been, it brings in so much, but uses it as a kind of a foundation to expand and go in different directions. And like I said, just incorporates all the different eras. And, this is it's as much as it would have been great to have a faithful version. It's just as great, if not more so, to have this version as well.
So we should, as an action item, do after Doom Patrol's over.
Yes.
We should do a special Titan Talk ranking the DC Universe TV adaptations, no matter the genre.
Okay.
That would be a fun thing for us to discuss. So I'll make a note of that. Executive producer?
I'm presuming only because, compared to, other networks, not just DC Universe.
Right. In other words,
service.
The original Flash, the original Batman,
the
the
CW shows.
Yeah, different. I think that would be a fun discussion.
I think it would be. So maybe we'll do that to help us to get to Titan season 2.
Exactly. So
All
there
right.
we go.
Sounds
All
like
right.
a plan.
Hey, Charles.
So
this was
we'll
a
save
blast
that for another
as
day.
always. Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Tell lovely Lori I said hi, and take us out.
All right. So all my best to Linda as well. And everybody, come on back. Danny Patrol. Do you think you've seen everything from Doom Patrol? Wait till you meet Danny the Street. You ain't seen nothing yet. So everybody come on back. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time right here, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Goodbye, everybody.